Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but now looking back on January, this is perhaps the best month of reading I have had ever, maybe. It was a very random selection of books, but six of the eight books I really, really loved. And the other two I still had a really good time with. They just weren't the sort of book that was aimed at the things I like. So let's jump into this January reading wrap up because, guys, it has been a month. And as we jump into the reads that I had in January, let me know what you read. What were the best books you read in January? What was the disappointing reads you had? What do you plan to read in February? We'll go into my February TBR too. We'll also check to see how well I did sticking to my January TBR. I didn't do the best, but I'm pretty happy with what I did actually. I think I deserve a pat on the back. So if you haven't already, you should probably subscribe to let me know I'm doing a good job for sticking to my TBR, mostly. Now, what did I start off January with? I started off by finishing off the Aurora Cycle trilogy by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I read all three of these books together in a row. I did the audiobooks for these ones, which were very well done. They had a full cast, so every character had their own voice actor, and there was some crossover voice actors from the other YA series I read by this author duo, the Illuminae Files. And yeah, really good audiobooks. Writing for these books, incredible. This was a YA space opera. So think of this as like we start in an academy setting. The academy is for like this United Nations sort of thing, but it's United Planets because we're in a future setting where there's tons of different aliens all working together. This United Planets Union sort of thing, if you want to think about it like that. And we're following these graduates as they graduate into a team and go out on their first peacekeeping mission. Now, they find themselves wound up in a much bigger story, and basically, this ragtag bunch of teenagers, 18-year-olds, are having to save the entire galaxy from its destruction. Now, this reminded me a lot of the animated Star Wars TV series. So think Star Wars Rebels. It does feel aimed at a very young audience. There are moments where the characters have a little bit of a deeper romance that aims up to that 14 to 20-year-old sort of range, with the languages in that sort of range as well. But for the most part, you'd feel comfortable with someone quite young reading these books. But don't get me wrong, yes, it's a YA story. The writing is still very, very beautiful. Like Jay Kristoff still fits his prose into there. You can tell which character POVs Jay Kristoff wrote and which ones Amy wrote. They're both well done, but you can just taste Jay Kristoff's prose and like his descriptiveness and his humor a little bit more in a few certain characters. So the writing here is better than a lot of general audience fantasy I read. So don't think that you're just getting plain prose. It's very beautiful prose that is very easy to read. Yes. Now, when breaking this series down and who it's for, I struggle to recommend this one because it does have the tone and feel and world building of something like Star Wars Rebels. So it aims very young, but then there's that immature, like sassy teen YA vibe going on. Then plot was the weakest part for me, as there's just a lot of time travel elements. So for me, that took away from the story. But the world building, the characters, the writing, that elevated the story for me. So I was able to have a good time with a story plot that I normally wouldn't enjoy. Normally, if you put time travel in something, I'm checking out. I'm not having a good time. I'm asking questions of how does this make sense? Here, I had a much better time than I thought I would, given how good everything else was. But just given the tone and the age demographic of the characters, I can't exactly picture the archetype of who's going to have a good time with this. I think you just need to have a think of the types of shows you like watching yourself. If the Star Wars animated series is cool to you, you don't mind some sassy teens, you could probably have a really great time with this. I did. I gave all these books kind of just like the 3.5 out of 5 stars sort of rating. And I enjoyed the last book the most. Then I enjoyed the first book the most. And then the book I liked the least was the middle one, because there was just a really obvious reveal that this story was building to. Like I saw a book earlier coming. So when they made it seem like it was a big deal and a big twist, it was just a bit of a letdown for me. And in this series, Jay and Amy try to avoid using any profanity, except for in a few moments. So it has a strong impact when they use swear words. but they use replacement swear words for most of the book. And if I have to hear the term "son of a biscuit" one more time, I'm going to start throwing chairs. It just didn't fit with the rest of the book because their writing is really, really good. So just chucking in a phrase like that killed me. In their other series, their characters swear all the time, but it's just all blacked out because it's in like file format. So it's like, oh, someone's gone and crossed out all the swears in this file, so it's a bit more court appropriate. But yeah, had a really good time with these two. But after reading them or listening to them, I think I peaked for the year, guys. I think I hit the best book of the year in January, and I don't know where we go from here because I read I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I was absolutely blown away, guys. This story reminded me a lot of The Road by Cormac McCarthy. So, in that post apocalyptic setting where the story doesn't feel like your typical story, in a very bleak setting, a setting very stripped of humanity. So, the basic plot for this story is we are following this young girl who is in a bunker with 39 other women, and all these other women she's with are much older. None of the women know each other. They have prison guards that come down and feed them, make sure they don't kill themselves, make sure they don't talk too much or interact too much. And they just have this existence in this bunker. They don't know why. And our main character, the girl that we're following, who is younger than everyone else, she never had a life outside of this prison cell. So this life is all she's known. She's never known society. She's never known humanity. But this is a story where we just see humanity find a way. We just see people just finding a way to survive, push through, finding light in the darkness, or an exploration of what is humanity, what is left of humanity when you strip away society. It was an utterly compelling read. And like a Cormac McCarthy novel, the writing was simple, but super powerful, very impactful. I again, I couldn't put this book down. It's a sort of book you'll read in 1 or 2 days. It's a 7-hour audiobook. It's a really interesting character study of humanity finding a way when there's no society. I just had to say that again because it was just so beautiful, and yeah, really has the same sort of vibes as The Road. Very early on in this book, the women are able to get out of this cell and find themselves in a dystopian world of humans, and we go through with this girl. There's a lot of time jumps. We see her entire life. It's beautiful. Just, I love bleak reads where we're just seeing humanity find a way. It's, yeah, really great. And I think it's like everyone should add to their TBR. Just be warned, it's not your regular type of story. It's just that bleak character exploration along the lines of The Road. Now, after that, I had another just fantastic book, but in just the complete opposite way. This was space opera, my first Warhammer 40k novel. And guys, why the hell did you not tell me about Warhammer sooner? I need more Warhammer in my life. I need more Aaron Dembski Bowden. This book was just enjoyment from start to finish. 3 of my all-time favorite series are Empire of the Vampire, the Farseer trilogy, and Sun Eater. All stories where our main character is an older person telling us their stories from their past. And The Spirit of the Emperor, this standalone novel in the 40k universe, does that same thing. Our main character is someone that works directly under the Space Marines. So these guys on the covers with all the suits, they're the Space Marines, the big badass warriors of the 40k universe. And if you are a 40k fan and I'm getting things wrong, please correct me down in the comments. This is my first introduction to a massive world with 600 plus books and all the other games and miniatures that go along with the 40k universe. But in this book, we are out in Alara's Vale. We are in a section of the 40k universe that has had a tear kind of through space that makes travel very hard. So we're in a very isolated part of the universe. So we're in a very isolated part of the Empire. The Empire has conquered this part, set people in charge of looking after these planets, keeping them safe from invasion, and continue to grow the empire. But because of this tear in space, the empire can't reach this section anymore. But they send a ship through. We're on that ship. We start off on that ship, and we're like, all right, the empire hasn't been able to look into this space in ages. Let's see what's going on, see if we can help out, and see if we can get back. So we've got a fact-finding mission, we get action, and we get a really interesting story that I won't say what it is because it would spoil part 3 of the book. But that is how the book is broken up. We've got coming through the veil and finding out what has been going on over here. We've got our space opera, dark sci-fi, fantasy, action, just all-out battle. And then part 3, I won't spoil it for you. Really good writing style. We're getting that story told from one of our characters' past. They're writing it down. Their writing is absolutely beautiful. I've actually had to add more books by Aaron Dembski Bowden to my TBR because I'm going to be doing my top 10 authors video soon. And after just one of his books, I was already considering putting him on the list. So I need to check out a few more of his books so I can be certain that he belongs on that list, where usually I'd read a few books of an author first before giving that higher praise. But the writing style was just so grandiose. It set the tone. It made me feel like, oh, I'm in this empire. I was feeling ready to go to war. I was feeling ready to just jump in my suit of armor and go to town, just fighting, because of just how amped up this writing style had me. It put me in the head of my character so well. The only issue I had with this whole book is the main character was a female, and I didn't realize that until part 3. So maybe that was just me missing something when I was reading it. But I didn't notice it until one of the characters said her later on in the book, and I was like, hang on a minute. Our main character's a lady? How did I not pick up on this beforehand? But everything else, though, was really fun. It's just a huge, big space opera world, like really action heavy, really dark, really gritty. I put in the spreadsheet for the bros because it just feels like that dude bro sort of just, mate, like I could be, like if I had the audiobook for this and I was listening to it in the gym, I'd be going to town on the weights. You just feel amped up. Just really great stuff, and just a really complimenting read for everything else I had this month. It felt great.
Now, for those of you like me who haven't read Warhammer and are looking to get into it, is this a good place to start? I think this was a perfectly fine place for me to start. It might be a little bit unconventional, and if you follow someone more from the Warhammer space, they might have some better recommendations for you. But I felt like I was given a perfect standalone story. I didn't feel lost. The world was explained, but I didn't feel like there was any info dumping. Had to use my brain to figure out what was going on. But it was just a really enjoyable time. The world building was great, and I didn't feel like I needed to be spoon-fed. I just got in, had a great story, and now I need more of this universe, and I'll be going into Night Lords next.
But next up, we had The Gallant by Jenny Wirtz, and this was our channel book club read. So we read this together on my free book club over on Fable, link down in the description. We're reading Silence's Silver by fellow booktuber Andrew Watson in February. And yeah, again, Fable completely free. We just read the book together, talk about it as we go through chapter by chapter. And I had an incredible time reading The Gallant with you all. So this one takes place 500 years before the events of the main novels of the Wars of Light and Shadow series. And I've read the first book and a half of this series before going into The Gallant, and I'm very happy I did it in that order. And I would recommend doing it in that order, as I feel you can get more out of The Gallant in terms of just the world building and backstory that it sets up for the main series, if you have the context of the first book, The Curse of the Mistwraith, first. But you can definitely start with The Gallant, especially if you want to try out Jenny's writing style, because she writes in a more like dense, flourishing sort of manner. I personally love Jenny's writing. She's a top 2, top 3 author of all time for me. I find the older language she uses and the more out of the way vocabulary to immerse me further into her books, and I find I get swept away into her worlds. But I do understand that many of you will find her writing dense and flourishing. That's why I use the word flourishing in the PowerPoint, because of how many of you guys mentioned that term in our book club. But for those of you that do read the Gallant and are somewhat interested in reading the main series, when Jenny has more of a page count that she's able to use, her writing is a lot easier to read. The density of the Gallant is crazy. Jenny's able to fit more world building, character, and story into 100 pages than any other novella I've ever read. So you get a lot from these 100 pages because of how Jenny is able to use her prose and use that more denser language, that she can say more things in fewer words, but say lots of things in a tougher to read writing style. But anyway, really nice romance story in a huge world that feels huge, even though it's just a novella. Like, just from reading this book without the context of the previous book, without the context of the main novels, the world feels huge. The magic feels huge. This is world changing magic that we're dealing with. The events of this book change the face of a continent for 500 years. Super interesting stuff. I absolutely love the Gallant, and I do recommend checking out Jenny's books. My elevator pitch for The Wars of Light and Shadow is it's Malazan meets The Wheel of Time meets Realm of the Elderlings, all just jammed together. Huge, epic, classic fantasy for those of us that just love the genre. And just keeping the absolute bangers going, I read The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, the second book in the trilogy of standalones from the world of the First Law, or the First Law world, or the First Law universe, however Abercrombie phrases that. The fifth book total in the series. I absolutely loved The Heroes. And I think I had the same experience with The Heroes that everyone who has read it has, where we've gone into it knowing that this is a book about just one battle. The whole book is centered around one battle, and you're just like, is that really going to be that interesting? Do I just want to know about one battle? And then we all read it and we're like, oh, Joe is just next level. It's 500 pages about one battle, and you can't put it down. You can't put this book down. The chapters are paced out perfectly. Like, yes, I'm about to talk about Robin Hobb, who has the longest chapters I've read outside of Johnny Wirtz in her Wars of Light and Shadow series. And I love those chapters and how they're just perfect for that book. But with The Heroes, we are constantly jumping around from both sides of the conflict, people on all different levels of the social hierarchies. There's a ton of political scheming going on. There's a ton of just war and battles and fights going on, maneuvering, sitting around campfires. You just get it all in The Heroes. And Joe's writing continues to get better with every book of his I've read. He just sets a gritty, real scene with his descriptive writing. He's definitely put his name as one of my favorite writers of all time. I'm very excited to actually rank these out soon. I've been absolutely spoiled this month getting Johnny Wirtz, Robin Hobb, Aaron Dembski Bode, and Joe Abercrombie and Jay Kristoff all in 1 month. That could be my top 5. There's another name that I'm currently reading that's also going in there. But coming back to The Heroes, we don't get like any big name character. We don't get any of our favorites from the previous 4 books, any big crossovers. But every character, you're just like, I'm really interested in this guy. He's not my favorite, but I'm into him. And you just get that of all the characters. And you just turn the page because you have to know how everyone's story ends. There's chapters that are bigger than the rest, where you are jumping from head to head to head in a battle, where like this person runs up a hill, dies. We get to see the POV of the person that killed him, and then as he dies, we get to see the POV of the next person. Absolute page turner. Jake Abercrombie is hilarious. There was so many moments in this book I was laughing out loud. I've always talked about how Kristoff is the funniest author I've ever read. Abercrombie is really pushing for that title. Kristoff, Abercrombie, Pratchett, they're all battling it out at the moment for authors to get me laughing the most. Absolutely phenomenal book. If you haven't started First Law yet, you have to get into it. It gets better with every book, and I rated The Blade itself a 5 out of 5. Actually, I lied. It doesn't get better with every book. For most people, it probably would. For me, I love The Blade itself. The Before they're hanged, I gave it 4.5 out of 5. There was something in it I didn't like. The Last Argument Kings, 5 out of 5. Best Served Cold, just a little bit better, 5 out of 5. Heroes, best one so far. Get onto it. This guy makes 500 pages of a single battle good. You need to check out Joe Abercrombie and the Heroes. But Robin Hobb, Live Ship Traders, was this even better than the Heroes? I think it was. I rated every single book in this trilogy a 5 out of 5. That's the only time I've ever done that for a completed series. So far, Christoph is on track for that with Empire of the Vampire, but we haven't seen book 3 yet. Can Christoph close that off? No one knows. But Hobb, can she close off Live Ship Traders? Yes, she can. Ship of Destiny and The Mad Ship, which I read in this month together, perfect. These books, to me, felt like a part 1 and 2. You flow right from book to book in this series, but you finish the first book, Ship of Magic, kind of with a ending. Mad Ship kind of just cuts off, and Ship of Destiny just picks up. We get a really big cast here from the main trader family we're following, the other families in the towns around them that they're interacting with, the politicians from the towns around them, from some of the pirates on a nearby shore who are getting up to some mischief, and just from some sailors seeking redemption. We get a huge cast of just super compelling characters. You're not going to like any of the characters in this series. I don't think any of the characters in this series are that likable. Maybe Amber, but the rest, even the ones we're supposed to like, I don't know. Because Hobb is able to just write really human characters, she's able to show the good and the bad side of all these characters. In the Farseer trilogy, we see Fitz for everything he is, for all the failings he has. And now we just get a bigger cast with more failings. And this is a painful read, but you are invested so deeply in the characters. It's also a compelling read. You get frustrated because of all these character interactions, because the interaction between mother and daughter, just screaming matches going through the house. I grew up with 3 older sisters. I'm well familiar with those matches, and the frustration of not being heard by your parents, or the frustration of having a kid that's not listening to you because they think they know the world for themselves. Hobb captures the family dynamics perfectly, but she captures all the character dynamics perfectly, and she doesn't shy away from the darker topics and darker themes. There's a deep exploration in this series between 3 characters that all have sexual assault done to them at some point in their lives. And Hobb goes into 3 different ways that can impact someone's life. Really interesting stuff, just getting those POVs, seeing how Hobb doesn't shy away from looking into these topics, seeing how she looks into how people can manipulate other people, other beings. There's a lot of gaslighting going on in this book. This is a drama first and an epic fantasy second, but the way the epic fantasy story just slowly starts kind of in the distance in book 1, and then just weaves and grows throughout the books to all come together in a Ship of Destiny for something very, very interesting that does a lot of world building for the series that we don't even realize because we're just lost in this big political nautical family drama. There's a ton of politics going on around this small trading town. I absolutely love this series, if you couldn't tell. The characters were elite, the character dynamics were elite, the politics were intriguing and interesting, the plot had me engaged the whole time. The writing style, Hobbs' writing style, just cozy, smooth, descriptive, beautiful. It's so immersive from page 1, and it's just the right amount of descriptiveness. Sometimes I have to make sure I have energy when I read Jenny Wirtz, but when I read Hobb, I'm sitting in front of the fire, I've got a blanket in front of me, I'm cozy. It's just beautiful writing style that just reads so smooth and whisks you away to another part of the world. And the world building is fantastic. You don't even realize it's happening, but you just get lost in the Six Duchies or in Bingtown and the Rain Wilds. I really think you should read Robin Hobb. I really think you should read The Realm of the Elderlings. If you didn't like Farseer, you still have to give Live Ships a go. It's just a great trilogy. Don't worry about reading the rest of the Fitz books if he's not for you. I'm going to go enjoy those myself. But that was everything I read and finished. in the month of January. So while we're here, let's look at my January TBR and how I did sticking to it. The Gallant, boom, smash that. The Ships of Merior, Janny Wirt's main novel in the Wars of Light and Shadow book. I'm halfway through. I'm buddy reading this one, and the person I'm reading it with is being very slow and taking their time with it. So they need to hurry up. Yes, I am looking at you. But I am loving this book even more than the first. We're getting to spend a lot of time with Dakar and Arathon in this book, and the dynamic between those two is hilarious. But Dakar by himself, he is so useless, so painful. He is my favorite annoying character I've ever read. Maybe, actually. It's a tie between him and Giselle from the First Law series. But I'm having a great time here. I can't wait to finish this one off in February. Then I smashed through Aurora Burning, smashed through Aurora's End, got the Heroes, Spear of the Emperor done, and the two Live Ships books. Gardens of the Moon, the first Malazan book, buddy reading that one with a friend, and we've just started it today. And just, I'm doing this one on audio. This is a reread for me. Going back into this world, knowing what happens in the first two books, it has been an absolute blast from the first page. The narrator does the best job when it comes to Gardens of the Moon. I can't wait to dive further into this one. Then the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I read I Who Have Never Known Men instead of this as my out of genre read. So that one's going to get pushed back, but not to February because I'm going to try something else. But now, my February TBR, do you think I'll be able to stick to it? Let's find out. Let me know what you think. But the plan is to finish off the First Law universe. So I won't get to Sharp Ends in February. I'll save up that short story collection, but I'm going to get through the main novels. So straight into Red Country as soon as my hold comes in, and then Little Hatred, Trouble of Peace, Wisdom of Crowds, getting through the Age of Madness trilogy. I've got a lot of big series open at the moment with Malazan, The Wars of Light and Shadow, The Realm of the Eldlings, and First Law. We're going to close off that loop of First Law when it comes to February, then we'll get back into smashing out the other two. Obviously, I'm going to continue on my buddy read of Ships of Merior. I really hope I can finish this one off and start book 3 in February. Who knows how I'll go for time. Work's been busy. Going through Malazan, hopefully I can do Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gates. Both being rereads, I should be able to get through those pretty speedily. And then we've got our book club read. So, book club for February, we are doing Silence is Silver, the prequel novella to Andrew Watson's Shadowbinders series. Andrew Watson, fellow booktuber, absolutely just incredible guy. He has one of the best channels here, guys. You probably already know about him if you're looking at my channel anyway, because he's got a bigger, better channel. But link in the description, free book club on Fable. Come read it with us. I plan on reading Silence is Silver and then jumping straight into Harbinger of Justice and then The Black Mantle, which is coming out on the 14th of February. So I plan to read that on release day. I can't wait. I think this is going to be a really fun month, and it's just all dark fantasy. So it's just going to be the best time. I love dark fantasy. 10 dark fantasy books in a row. Will I burn out of the genre? No. No. Not with these books. Not with Abercrombie. Not with Erickson. Not with Wirtz. Not with Wirtz. And not with Watson. It's going to be a elite February. Do you think I'll even be able to stick to that? I don't know. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great day. Just happy reading.